according to our friend over at Penn Live, Nick Fairbaugh, the Pittsburgh Steelers have interest in a number of names: DJ Reed, Tre'Davious Ward, Byron Murphy, which I think surprised me. But the one that did not surprise me at cornerback is Nate Hobbs out of Las Vegas. The former Raider is set to be a free agent for the first time in his career. He's still young. He's like 25 years old. He's coming off a season where he started 7 games, I believe. He is a slot guy. Comes up with like an interception a year, couple of sacks. Like, that's what you're looking for if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, is just somebody reliable and young that you can develop. Stop plugging pieces in there that only work for a year or two or for 6 or 7 games in Beanie Bishop's case, and go get somebody who's young. Nate Hobbs was a name that was all over the combine. Everybody was talking about Nate Hobbs as a landing spot or a guy who could land in Pittsburgh, that the Steelers obviously have interest in him, that he played with Gerald Alexander, who's the new defensive backs coach for the Steelers. Physical guy, good in coverage, their best option in the last couple of years to fill that role. He's a slot corner, so he's not going to be expensive. Plus, he's cheap and doesn't start every game, so he's less expensive in a crowded cornerback room. He's probably looked at even cheaper because guys are going to look at DJ Reed and Ward and Murphy, and somebody else just got released, the Darius Slay, who got released yesterday, and look at those guys and say, I'd pay more for them than I would Nate Hobbs. Nate Hobbs' value is probably not super high, but he comes in here as a starter. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think Beanie Bishop is viewed as a guy who is on the roster in 2025. I think that he's a guy that has an opportunity to get onto the roster in 2025. I think the Steelers would very much so like Beanie Bishop to be on the roster in 2025 and develop into something. I think they hope Beanie Bishop comes in here and knocks the socks off everybody and is the dude for the Steelers next to Joey Porter Jr., who could play on the inside. But I don't think they were sold by him last year. I do think that his benching had just as much to do with him as it did wanting Cam Sutton out there. And I do feel the Steelers are going to try to replace him. And personally, Nate Hobbs is the best answer there. They're going to go after corner and free agency. I'd much rather an all-veteran cornerback room than a couple of mid-round rookies playing slot and the outside next to Joey Porter Jr. I'm all about Nate Hobbs. Like, I am. I think the Steelers are going to kind of bring in another veteran piece for the secondary in a guy that we don't really know a bunch about. I view it as maybe I'm just in the honeymoon phase with Deshaun Elliott or something, but I view it as a potential. This could work out really well for the Steelers. Nate Hobbs is a name that, again, we've mentioned before. Interest is becoming real. We're getting very close to these things happening. Your thoughts on Nate Hobbs?
My thoughts on Nate Hobbs are not as prominent right now as my thoughts on Beanie Bishop, because I just don't understand the lack of patience with a guy in Beanie Bishop. I thought that he, yes, looked every bit an undrafted rookie early in that season last year, but I didn't think that he played himself off of the field. I understand that he struggled in some points, but he also made some big plays in certain games early in that season. It was very interesting to me that he wasn't able to play himself back onto the field, but that's okay, because I think even if you bring in Nate Hobbs, Beanie Bishop is a guy that had to earn everything he got. He wasn't expected to make the 53-man roster going into the season last year. Not only did he do that, but he became the opening day starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers at the slot corner position. I just don't understand the lack of patience that they have at that position. Now, it might just be because it's that position and the nature of it is such that if you can't play outside as well, then you're kind of on an island there, and it's either sink or swim. And he didn't necessarily swim like Michael Phelps when he was out there. So you can kind of look at it and say maybe that they need to replace that. But I don't understand the lack of patience with a Beanie Bishop. I like Nate Hobbs. If they bring in Nate Hobbs, it's a good option there. But I feel like in an offseason where you have a lot of holes to fill, bringing in Nate Hobbs to replace Beanie Bishop feels like something that is a nominal addition that takes away more money than it should.
Okay. I don't think Beanie, in my eyes, sits in the tier of played well enough that I want to see what comes about it. I mean, I thought he played fine, but I also thought he got really lucky a couple of times. And Like, the Garrett Wilson interception was fantastic. The one-handed one. The one where it bounces off of his head should have been a touchdown for the Jets. And then he's great and a reaction piece. I think this is just all like the position itself. If this was outside and it was Corey Trice we're talking about, you let that guy develop. That sounds great. But how much like ground, how stable is the slot corner position? Not very stable. It's a big rotational piece within a defense. Here's my other point when it comes to Nate Hobbs, depending on what it costs, but what do you expect? I expect Nate Hobbs to go for $5 million, a season, $6 million, something like that. How old is Beanie Bishop? Can you look up how old Beanie Bishop is? Because I'm almost sure that he's 24 years old and that Nate Hobbs is 25. And I get it. $5 million is $5 million, but $5 million for a pretty okay upgrade is probably okay. You could probably make that stance.
They're both 25 years old.
Yeah. Like it's in my eyes, it's still a young guy that you're getting plenty of career out of. You're not taking a step again. Like if this was Dante Jackson to cut Corey Trice, I think Corey Trice should be a backup, but to cut Corey Trice, I would be against it totally. Don't do it. It's not develop your guy. Beanie is again 25 years old, an undrafted guy. Hobbs is a proven NFL vet and costs, $4 million more a season, which is a lot of money. It's not that much money when the Steelers don't have like a bad cap situation. Their cap situations, they're going to sign a quarterback, a wide receiver, and probably 2 corners and still be pretty okay. They're going to be, they're not in a spot where they're struggling. And because of that, I'm okay with it. I don't want Beanie off the roster though. I do agree with you on that one. And I very much so agree with you on that one. I do not want Beanie gone. I want Beanie to be here, to be a piece, teach him how to play special teams, let him contribute at safety. I don't care. I like Beanie over guys like Ryan Watts. I like Beanie over guys like James Pierre. I like Beanie as an option to come in here, find a spot for him, see what he could work or become in the next year. You give him one more year to really branch out and make some noise out there. But again, like coaches know more than we do sometimes, and it's crazy. But that being said, the coach that decided to bench him, the coach that gave up on him, at least his position coach, is no longer here. So maybe Gerald Alexander could pull something else out. Do you think the other side of this report were all those big names, DJ Reed, Byron Murphy, Charvarius Ward, the likelihood that actually happens?
Very small. Very, very small. I mean, you mentioned that the Steelers do have a decent salary cap situation, but they also have a lot of money invested on the defensive side of the football. And I think they're aware of it right now. I think they're very aware of it after watching what happened late last season, that they don't have enough invested in the offensive side of the ball. And those guys are going to cost a pretty penny here in the next week.
Yeah, you could probably sign Dante Jackson and Nate Hobbs for like $4 million less than what you're going to sign any of those guys for, which is which is just too much money. Like you're good. Dante Jackson's a starter on most teams that need a corner. Just go get Dante Jackson, draft somebody, or hope that Corey Trice, don't let Corey Trice play in training camp. Don't touch the field. Put him in a bubble until you absolutely need him in the third quarter of week 11 when Dante Jackson's back starts to give out. Like when that happens, Corey Trice is allowed to come onto the field. Until then, he does nothing. That's how I would handle the situation.